how much do you guys follow GameStop? Not very much.
I know the surface of what's happening. I can't say I'm a gamer. I know that I think it only exists in 3 countries now, right? Isn't it just the US, Australia, New Zealand?
It's had a weird lifespan, right? Because at one point, GameStop for a lot of people really was a staple place to go. Not me
like
specifically.
Blockbuster.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss you, RIP Blockbuster. But GameStop, unlike Blockbuster, got a sort of weird boost by becoming the meme stock. You remember how like people were buying up the stock? It had this surge. Right now, the company is looking to sell its operations in Canada and France. And in sort of an unusual message, the CEO tweeted yesterday, email m&a@gamestop.com if you're interested in buying GameStop Canada or Micromania France. High taxes, liberalism, socialism, progressivism, wokeness, and DEI included at no additional cost if you buy today. GameStop, I have this article from PC Gamer. They talk about kind of how GameStop has struggled for a while, right? They've closed physical locations. People aren't using and buying video games the same way. Obviously, conversion to streaming and all kinds of stuff has affected that. I wanted to see if you guys feel like DEI and wokeness are becoming overused. Like, is this becoming sort of an excuse for companies to be like, that's why we're not thriving, because of DEI?
I think they're elements of the larger issue of socialism. And in socialism, a company is not going to be able to survive. It can't survive the taxes. It can't survive like the social credit scores that it needs, the ESG scores or whatever they want to call it. It's not going to work. And I think that was part of the lie of Swedish socialism, and how it's kind of used as the beacon of the ideal version of socialism, when Sweden hasn't been socialist since the 80s. And when it was, taxes went over 120%. It died. The businesses left. It went from like the 3rd freest country in the world to like 13th or something very, very quickly. So businesses can't stay in those situations. And DEI and wokeness, they're getting to be cringe words because they're just circling all the time, and they are being the scapegoat, I think, of broader issues, but they are definitely essential pieces of the socialism pie that have always existed. We just haven't been using those words before, so it doesn't matter what words you use. It's part of socialism, and that does not foster competition, so that's where business goes to die, and that's what happened to GameStop.
I think I have a little bit of a different take, not on DEI and wokeness generally.
On every topic, aren't you?
Well, I agree with Joy on the ESG stuff. Obviously, I don't think any of that stuff is good, socialism, all that nonsense. But I have a little different take on this particular issue because of the CEO, Ryan Cohen. So he's a self-described investing activist, right? And that means something in the investing world, having to basically, he's a disruptor of the space. And one of his favorite quotes is, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. I think he's a pragmatist here. I don't think he has I think he is riding the wave of companies that are rolling back their policies, but I'm actually not so certain that he isn't just a part of the Hegelian dialectic. So if anybody knows, like the philosopher Hegel, he's a 19th century philosopher, and he basically talked about a thesis, an antithesis, and then a synthesis. Okay, so this is this is the next step of where liberalism is going, because it follows this very Marxist pattern, and Marx is actually very heavily influenced by Hegel. Okay, so basically what you do is you build back better. You bring up a problem and a solution, and then what comes after that is what you were really after the whole time, that synthesis of the thesis and the antithesis. So I believe that this is kind of playing out in obviously the stock market, but it is just a microcosm of society at large, where you have these two extremes, where in the end, the globalists, the people, the Soroses and the people that are behind funding all the wokeness that we saw from really 2016 on, but really ramping up in 2020 and 2021, 2022, all under Biden. I don't think they ever believed that level of ridiculous wokeness that the rank and file crazy liberals totally bought into hook, line, and sinker. The actual architects of this idea never wanted it to be at that extreme. They wanted the thesis and the antithesis, so that the synthesis is where they wanted to end up. And I think that Ryan Cohen is a pragmatist. I think Ryan Cohen knows exactly what he's doing. And I don't think he's like some kind of crypto like MAGA. He's been conservative this whole time, and he's just so happy that the DI is going away. I think most intellectuals, the elitists on the socialism side, they always knew that the extremes of the woke wave was never going to be the ultimate solution, and they're just kind of starting to come together on moving the Overton window where none of us want it to be, but we're all so happy that we're just not to the level of ESG that we were thinking they were going for. So
there's like a weird relief, right?
Yeah, we're like happy, even though we did kind of lose because everything has shifted. You know, we're happy that it didn't go all the way.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. He's not like some undercover MAGA guy. Just like, you know, we've seen like Zuckerberg make this switch. I don't think they have any, you know, beliefs at all. And even if they do, I kind of don't think it matters. I think that the decisions that they're making now are a reflection of what the people, they want to manipulate the people to believe that they have, which I think is kind of for the better, honestly, because that means in the culture war, that part of the culture is winning. So I think it can only be a good sign.
Well, on that note, I'm going to pull up this article, and I believe it's actually an op-ed. Bad sign that it's coming from MSNBC, but bear with me here. Cowardly companies ditch DEI. Consumers are fighting back. So we saw this, especially end of last year, early this year. There were a lot of companies that specifically terminated their DEI departments. Costco kind of got in trouble for being like, no, we're sticking with ours, when they should have just said nothing. And this writer is talking about the fact that people are now being called on to boycott companies that are, like, at one point we were boycotting Target because they were introducing gender fluid clothing to children, and they were sort of pushing a sexual provocative transgenderist wardrobe on us all. Now you have organizations like the NAACP that saying that there's a Black consumer advisory saying this is where you should spend your money because they support DEI efforts. Does the phrase DEI, does this concept have a different Pavlovian effect for different sides of the aisle, and which one is better at responding to it?
Well, definitely, but they're both going to respond to it in equal and opposite ways. It's just going to be how many people are on each side. So it's going to be let the best side win, or, you know, the most populist side win, and whoever that is, that's who's dominating the culture right now. So that is the indication of where the culture is going. And I do think that side is on the right now.
What do you think, Emily?
Well, I agree with that completely. I mean, we're seeing the complete reversal of it in the military. That's been a big topic in my circles. It's just the way that Pete Hegseth is rolling all of that back and actually letting everybody get back to their jobs. And I think this looks like we're winning the culture war. I just hope that we aren't allowing ourselves to be lulled into a false sense of security because we just happen to be winning right now. And we just have to, I think, if anything, the last decade of politics should have taught all of us to be vigilant, even if we're riding some kind of high. Don't lose the strategic battles because you're so distracted over the fact that we are winning on the tactical level. Like, we have DEI policies rolling back. You see Costco Bud Lighting themselves, and that's all like fun for us. Like, we're all like laughing, and it's true. Like, you know, rip Costco, because I totally had to cancel my membership because of that. But I do think that we need to keep a close watch on things that conservatives do care about, but we're kind of letting it fly under the radar. Like, increasing in the kind of overall technocracy, these issues that we are kind of letting fly under the radar, like, oh, we're going to spend billions of dollars on mRNA vaccines to big pharma. Wait a minute, like none of us said yes to that. Let's not like get distracted about that easy, like tastes good, like melts in a second win from that ice cream cone, and forget like we have to hold everybody accountable to make sure they don't stab us in the back and sell us down the river for the ultimate war instead of just winning a battle.
One of the most interesting parts of the MAGA movement over the last decade, really, because it was obviously started 2015, kept going, but the latest iteration of it during the last election cycle, to me, was how frustrated people were. There were a lot of people, early supporters of Trump, who I think were maybe a little bit bitter, where they were like, where have you guys been? Like, we were saying some of this stuff way back in the day, but it took, I think, kind of going through the Biden administration for some people to say, actually, I have to say something. I have to change the way I'm spending money. I have to change the things that I'm talking about at home with my family in order to see any progress. Because there is an element of complacency when you get, Republicans, conservatives, even libertarians to a certain extent, of being like, well, I want you to live how you want to live. I want to let it like it. It's almost like let's not make a big deal out of this mentality, when actually that's the complete opposite of how someone who's progressive or on the left feels about anything. I mean, there's a reason that, transgender people are like 0.2% of the population, yet we talk about them all the time. It's because they constantly demand attention. And so I wonder if some of the movements we've seen born of the current iteration of MAGA are a result of that. The fact that people were finally like, no, you must do something about the healthcare industry. No, my food needs to be better. No, we must have action on the border. Is this, hopefully is a reaction to years of complacency and the final breaking with the frustration they felt.
Yeah, it changed me. I voted for Biden. I was 19 years old. That's all I knew. That's what all my friends did. How was I supposed to know? I wasn't paying for anything. So I didn't feel the pressure of costs or anything. Like, money meant nothing to me. Money was an enigma. I wasn't paying. And then I went through college and got spat out of it and realized that nobody prepared me for the world. Nobody told me how to do taxes. Nobody told me how much I was going to be taxed, that I'm basically a government slave, and that all of this social stuff is clogging everyone's brains. It's clogging the news cycle. And there really are distraction issues, but there are important cultural issues, and it shows you that with the loss of religion, every single person is religious, whether they know it or not. They could call themselves an atheist. They're not. They are religious, and you are religious based on the culture that you grew up in. If you grow up in the United States, you grow up with Judeo-Christian values. But the problem is when they change that religion to be, oh, you don't believe in God, God's not real, so we're going to replace it with another religion because logic is biologically expensive. We can't use that all the time. We need some sort of set of mores to operate through the world. And so if it's not going to be God, it's not going to be Christianity, it's not going to be Judaism, it's not going to be anything else, what's it going to be? It's going to be liberalism. So that was the religion.
It's going to be science.
Yeah, well, it's this warped version of science that isn't even really real, because what Fauci was doing was nothing close to science. There was no scientific method involved whatsoever. But it's going to be the pseudoscience. It's going to be liberalism. That's your new religion. So that's where all these social issues are stemming from. And they don't make any sense. It does not make any sense to put kids on puberty blockers when most of them change their minds later down the line. But let's surgically change them because that's the religion. That is an idol. So no matter how little sense it makes, that's your moral operating system now. So you are going to defend that to the death. And more, it's not going to make sense. It's going to get more extreme. And people are going to wake up and realize, uh-oh, what religion am I in? More of a cult, really. And I have to leave. And that's what I did. I left a cult.